we covered a number of different things last time, and let's see if we can go here. So one of the things that you want to avoid is access or exposure to aluminum. Aluminum can be a detrimental component to the human system. We don't need aluminum to function, and it actually functions as a neurotoxin and can have some embryotoxic effects as well. But typical exposures for aluminum include aluminum pots and pans. I think most people are aware of that now, but there may still be people cooking with aluminum and aluminum eating utensils. I know that for camping, we used to use aluminum when I was a kid because it was light. Now we go to titanium or stainless steel. Titanium is as light or more durable than aluminum, and it doesn't leach components into the food that we're eating like aluminum does. Also, antiperspirants can also harbor aluminum. That's why they function as an antiperspirant, because the sweat glands are stopped from functioning for a period of time, and that can have overall effects over time. Some vaccinations contain aluminum, not all types, but there are a number of types that do. They're additional ingredients that function as adjuvants that essentially stimulate an immune response. So they sometimes put in things that are arouse the immune system in various ways and stimulate it with the idea that it aids the immune response and in the body's creation of a protective effect with that challenge. So whether or not that actually is the full functionality of that or not, people sometimes need to do a detox following inoculations just to reduce the burden of the metals that are present. There could be other adjuvants as well. Also, various desensitization procedures, as it was labeled in the source that I was looking at. Basically, that's code for anesthesia. The old forms of anesthesia were chloroform and ether. They worked very well. Did the job of allowing people to not feel the pain during procedures. One of the downsides for using those forms was the fact that some of them, I'm not sure which one, probably the ether, was explosive. And so you had to be very careful in its handling. No static charges and things like that associated with the environment in which it was used. The new anesthesias actually have a much longer recovery time associated with them as far as full functionality, and can contain heavy metals, which is part of how they work. So doing a detox following a procedure with anesthesia is probably a good idea as well. So there's an interesting review article from 2017 in the German Medical Association journal Deutsches Arztblatt, the health effects of aluminum exposure. Had a whole host of different effects that they studied and looked at from all across the different studies that have been done looking at aluminum. And they noted neurotoxic and embryotoxic effects in particular. Also noticed that it's a third most abundant element on Earth, which I found interesting. And that the recommendation was to keep exposure to aluminum as low as possible. While there wasn't any direct causal cancer effects that were cited, it could still be an accessory trigger to those types of events. So avoiding aluminum is a good idea in all its forms. So when you're looking at vegetable juices and fruit juices, they are used effectively in helping the body rebound from from a state of disease to a state of health. A lot of their usage is in the detoxification realm, but you don't want to eat fruit juices and vegetable juices at the same time. They should be separated from one another. Counsels on Diet says it is not well to eat fruit and vegetables at the same meal. If thy digestion is feeble, the use of both will often cause distress and an inability to put forth mental effort. It is better to have the fruit at one meal and the vegetables at another. So separating them by a meal allows the body to digest them thoroughly. Juices are going to be digested more rapidly because they're lacking fiber, because the juice has been extracted from the whole plant. And again, it says in Counsels on Diet, fruit and vegetables taken at one meal produce acidity of the stomach, even though some of them can be alkaline. Then impurity of the blood results, and the mind is not clear because the digestion is imperfect. You should understand that every organ of the body is to be treated with respect. In the matter of diet, you must reason from cause to effect. And it's interesting that both these quotes, Ellen White mentions mental effects of the combining of fruits and vegetables in the same meal and intake. And that's interesting. We want to maintain mental acuity so that we can think rationally and think well and be receptive and open for the Holy Spirit's prompting in our lives. If we have a brain fog from whatever source that might be, and to this day and age, there are numerous sources of brain fog, ranging from stress to substances to toxins. There's just a lot of different things that can disrupt. And if we do that unintentionally through the things we take in through our body, if we know about it, if we learn about it, we need to change from those things. And she says again, this is back in 1909, which I found very, very interesting. The brain and nerves are in sympathy with the stomach. And so how is that? Well, we know today that the gut, that is the stomach all the way down through the lower colon, if you look at the neurological density of the brain compared to that of the gut, it has about the same neurological density. And they've called that the gut-brain connection. That's how it has an effect on the brain and our mental clarity, our mental acuity. They talk about when a student is taking a test, having a fruit snack or something like that can be beneficial. That can be helpful if you don't have a lot of other things that are also trying to compete for that same energy and space. You want to keep your mind clear. Also, fasting can be a beneficial way of making your mind more mentally aware and acute. So a person who has a compromised health condition, particularly in the cancer realm, lots of outdoor time is very beneficial. So the benefits of outdoor time, again, kind of the New Start components, we have lots of fresh air, potentially. So you want to be aware of your surroundings and make sure that the air is pure and fresh. If it's not, you need to move to somewhere where it is, or have some kind of a filtration capacity available, because there are places where the air is not clean, pure, and fresh. Industrialized areas, potential downwind from industry or power, whether that be nuclear or coal, or other sources of pollutants that are in the air, refining. You want to avoid near downwind kinds of situations. Exercise is very helpful. It keeps the circulatory system peaked, keeps your heart moving well, keeps the blood moving through your body. You have vasodilation that takes place during exercise naturally, that allows tissue perfusion of the blood. And with tissue perfusion, you have oxygen delivery, and that oxygen delivery helps maintain healthy tissues. One of the issues with diabetics, for example, is they start to have neuropathy and circulation issues in their extremities. and this is also true for smokers. Smokers have vasoconstriction that tends to happen in their extremities, to the point that if a and I've heard stories about this from surgeons who have clients coming in with a finger they've lost, and they'd like to have it put back on. If they're a smoker, they typically deny that procedure, because unless they absolutely stop smoking and never go back to it, they'll probably lose that reattachment because the circulation just won't be there. So exercise just gets the lymphatic system moving, keeps the flow of the interstitial fluids through the body, as well as the blood, and aids the body in detoxification just by being able to move and pick up the toxins from the cells that are detoxifying, or just going through their daily metabolic activities. So you can increase the intensity very easily in walking. Just choose a hill or increase the speed, carry a little bit of weight. There's ways to make walking very intense. So walking shouldn't be looked down upon as an exercise. In fact, it's been noted that it's probably one of the most beneficial exercises because it doesn't have as much wear and tear associated with it as, say, running, for example. Now, you can get exercise through swimming or biking as well, but there's just there are significant bone density benefits to walking. Anytime you have a heel strike as a part of your movement, and that can just be standing on your tiptoes and dropping down on your heels, you're going to get bone density benefits. If you are exclusively swimming or bicycling, non-weight bearing activities, lying in bed, you'll have erosion of bone tissue. In fact, there was research that was done that bedridden patients, if once a day they were stood upright and standing at least once a day, they significantly reduced the bone loss that they would have incurred if they were lying in bed during the entire time. So even just a periodic daily standing was enough to arrest that significantly, which is pretty cool. Sunshine, of course, is another aspect of the outdoor time, and the production of vitamin D. Vitamin D has so many benefits, one of which is aiding that calcium deposition, but also aiding immune function and the ability of the body to challenge and take on any illnesses that come our way. Hence, in the northern latitudes where we live, there is often seasonal flus, which correspond very closely with decreases in vitamin D levels. As people become more aware of that, they've been able to supplement with vitamin D that allows the body's immune system to stay proficient throughout the sun lacking periods of time. So maintaining optimal immune system year-round is really crucial, and vitamin D is a key component to that, as well as all other aspects of immunity. And cancer is an immune system issue along with other parts of it. So basically, fresh air, exercise, and vitamin D help to cleanse the lungs, aid in circulation increases. If a person happens to be confined inside for any particular reason, they can't get out for whatever reason, just deep breathing exercises is very helpful. Getting that stale air out of the lungs, because we have a maximal tidal capacity of our lungs, and deep breathing, if we don't deep breathe, you can actually end up getting respiratory conditions just from not deep breathing. So oftentimes you'll have a patient, maybe someone who falls and breaks their hip or goes into the hospital and is bedridden for a period of time, end up getting pneumonia, and then perhaps that's actually what kills them. It's a secondary cause of death when the primary entry into the hospital was an accident. The pneumococcal bacteria take hold in their lung. If they were to do deep breathing exercises, exchange that air so that it's not stale and shallow breathing, there would probably be much better resistance to pneumonia, as well as having fresh air. So you can also do indoor exercises if you have good ventilation for doing that. So they can be non-strenuous or strenuous, just as long as you're getting your body moving. Our bodies were designed to move, and if we don't move, they tend to stop or they lose their functionality. You may have known people who have had a frozen shoulder or other types of joint seizure, so to speak, largely because they may have had some pain there and were protecting it and not moving it, and over time it becomes stiff. And that can be worked out with things like physical therapy, but it's a lot easier to keep those joints moving rather than allow them to seize up due to disuse. So you want to keep your skin active. So frequent sweat baths can be very beneficial. So that, the skin is the largest organ of our body. And it's also an excretory organ. So keeping the pores open and allowing it to move freely, the sweat to freely move through is very beneficial for maintaining pure blood, because it helps to relieve any toxins that may be built up in those areas that are, the blood would bring it to the skin for sweating. So if sweat baths are beneficial, so they can be done in a sauna, an infrared sauna. You can even do them in a like this lady here in the lower right, in a tent like that, a body tent, so to speak. You can have your own personal sauna in a small space, and you can even do it with a bed sheet, with a shower curtain, and a blanket over top. So it can be real stick in the sand, so to speak, just real basic. It doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. All you need is hot water, blankets, and somewhere to sit. So you can do those sweat treatments very low tech. Salt glows can also be helpful. So basically using sea salt to rub on the surface of the skin. Basically they function to aid elimination by moisturizing and exfoliating the skin. So when you're doing a sweat bath and you're raising the body temperature of an individual, you want to make sure that you're keeping the brain cool, the head. So a damp towel on the head. This is basic hydrotherapy too, because the neurological tissue of the brain is sensitive to high temperatures. Get up 104 and above, you're starting to move into danger territory, 106 in particular, because you'll start to lose neurological and cellular integrity. So you can put an ice bag over the heart if there's any heart troubles to help keep that area cool. A daily towel rub is also helpful to keep the skin active. So if the person is strong enough to withstand that, just a nice, just a dry towel rub, basically the friction over the body just brings the circulation to the surface. If there are particular areas where there are issues, you can do a hot, cold kind of alternating packs on areas like the stomach, spleen, liver, and spine areas. So speaking of that, one of the things that as any kind of a tissue is repairing itself, it needs to have macrophages and other immune system cells like T cells available to help that process. And while we're talking about keeping skin active, we can talk about the role of contrast showers, for example, or contrast baths. Just doing a hot and cold series on a daily or bi-daily basis as necessary. A minute hot, 30 seconds cold, alternating that 3 cycles is a demonstrated way to keep or to elevate natural killer cells and immune cell function. So that's a very simple, low-tech way to do that. My wife was actually in a study during her physical therapy training as a test subject where they went through contrast showers and did pre and post shower blood draw, and they were actually able to measure that immune system activity increase based on the contrast showers. So a thorough massage can be helpful too, just aiding in the removal and elimination of poisons. Also increases the circulation of the body. Just having a full body massage that can help to move fluids, aid the lymphatic system, and increase the circulatory system's activity. Red clover, we have mentioned that before. Red clover is really an essential, very powerful little plant. The blossoms in particular are where we have the most benefit, and essentially it's been suggested that you can drink it instead of water and in copious quantities. So just the more you drink, the better, really. So Jethro Kloss relates a story of picking clover blossoms as a kid, a young person, for his parents, aiding a postal postmaster of their town who had some cancer in his body somewhere. He wasn't able to remember where that was, and he probably never actually knew. He just knew that he was getting it for this person for that situation. And the postmaster drank that tea on a regular basis and lived to old age. So up in the mid 80s, I believe. So basically to make the red clover blossom tea, a handful of blossoms to a quart of simmering hot water, simmer it for 15 minutes, cool it and drink. So you could drink it cold, you could drink it warm, drink as much as possible, within the realm of feasibility. Many times you have other things you're taking too, but whenever possible, utilize the red clover tea. The red clover actually can function in concert with some other things as well. So we have some other herbs that can be helpful in addition, and one of those is blue violet. So blue violet is a common wild plant, and you can use the whole plant. So the stems, the flowers, the roots, and it's suggested that it can be combined, particularly for people suffering from various forms of cancer, with red clover and rock rose. So the order of the plants on your screen there, we have the blue violet to the left, and the red clover blossom in the center, and the rock rose. You're going to be using the leaves, not the blossom so much on the rock rose, but the leaves and the oils for using in a tea form. And basically approximately equivalent ratios of those three components to make your tea. Another commonly available garden weed is chickweed. And I kind of want chickweed, although I don't want chickweed because it is a rather pernicious weed. It tends to prefer very fertile soils, so it is an indicator of fertile soils. But it has this tiny little blossom. It's actually blossoming now. One of the places where I garden here in the valley has lots and lots of chickweed, and it produces lots and lots of seeds. But chickweed is a great poultice in poultice form for skin. So if there's skin lesions, it can be very beneficial in helping to turn those around. So it can be used as a tea, can be used as a powder, so drying it and then powdering it. You can use it like spinach in various salves that either have a beeswax base or another type of base. Basically, on a skin, at the skin level, it can reduce inflammation and itching, which can be quite debilitating and annoying when someone has inflamed skin or itching. So this, could also extend to things like psoriasis and other forms of skin irritations. So basically for the tea, you would take 1 heaped teaspoon to a cup of boiling water and steep that for 30 minutes before consuming it. And then we have cleavers. So cleavers is another plant that we love to hate. If you're a gardener, cleavers can be a common weed as well. The entire plant is useful. So cleavers is also known as bedstraw, is also known as Velcro plant, perhaps. The little burrs that you see here, if you get in the middle of them, they will just stick right to you. Sometimes they're called stick tights, but they're very viney, and it has just little hooks, little barbs all along the stem and the leaves, and even around those stick tights. Those are the seeds that'll come up next year, and it'll grow year round. I found some early this winter, not nearly as vigorous as it grows in other parts of the year, but it's very good for many skin diseases, including skin cancer. It can be eaten like spinach, so just use it in a culinary fashion like spinach, but you can also use the tea, and basically take 1 ounce of the cleavers dry and put it into 1 pint of boiling water and simmer it for 20 minutes. So this isn't a steep, it's actually a simmer. So there's a little bit different treatment than, so it's more like a decoction than an infusion. Decoctions take a longer time to prepare than a tea. And then you're not just drinking the tea like you would a cup of tea, recommending 1 teaspoon 3 times a day as an intake from the sources that I was looking at. So also, because it has a high tannin content, Cleavers is not something you want to take without a break. So every 2 weeks, you should take a 1 to 2 week break from it. But it is has other blood purifying and beneficial qualities to it, in addition to aiding in the approach to skin cancers or other skin lesions that one may have.